Have you ever noticed that the longest conversation you'll ever have is the one taking place inside your own mind? From the moment you wake up until the moment you fall asleep, there is a voice that never stops speaking. Sometimes it encourages you. Sometimes it reminds you of your strengths. But for many people, it quietly repeats the same fears, the same doubts, and the same limitations every single day. Now imagine something for a moment. Imagine that every sentence spoken by that inner voice was being written into the story of your life. Every thought became another line in the script. Every belief became another chapter. Would you continue speaking to yourself the way you do now? Because whether you realize it or not, your inner voice is writing tomorrow before tomorrow arrives. Most people spend their lives trying to change the outside world. They change jobs, relationships, routines, even cities. Yet wherever they go, they eventually find themselves facing the same emotions, the same frustrations, and often the same results. Why? Because while the scenery changed, the conversation inside never did. If your inner voice constantly whispers, "Nothing ever works out for me," your mind begins searching for evidence to support that belief. If it repeatedly says, "I'm always too late," you'll start noticing every missed opportunity while overlooking the ones that arrive on time. The world begins to reflect the story you've been telling yourself. This doesn't mean every event is under your control. Life will always contain uncertainty, challenges, and moments you never expect. But your response to those moments is shaped by the voice you've practiced listening to the most. Think of your mind as fertile soil. The soil does not argue with the seed placed into it. Whether the seed grows into flowers or weeds depends on what is planted consistently. Your thoughts work in a similar way. Every repeated idea becomes easier to believe. Every repeated belief begins influencing your choices. Those choices eventually shape your experiences. That is why one negative thought is not the problem. A repeated negative identity is. There is a difference between thinking, "Today was difficult," and believing, "My life is always difficult." The first describes a moment, the second creates an identity. And identities are powerful because people naturally behave in ways that agree with the person they believe themselves to be. If someone believes they are unlucky, they often hesitate before opportunities. If someone believes they are capable, they step forward with confidence even when they don't have every answer. The opportunity may be identical, but the inner conversation changes the outcome. Listen carefully to the words you use when no one else is around. "I'll never be successful." "I'm not good enough." "Things always go wrong. What if I fail?" These sentences may seem harmless because they stay inside your head, but your subconscious doesn't treat them as jokes. It treats repetition as importance. The thoughts you repeat most often become familiar, and familiarity slowly turns into belief. Now imagine replacing those thoughts, not with empty promises, but with truthful, empowering perspectives. "I am learning every day. I can grow. I expect good opportunities. I remain calm even when life feels uncertain." Notice how different those statements feel. They don't deny reality. They reshape your relationship with it. Your inner voice should become your greatest supporter, not your harshest critic. Consider how you would speak to someone you deeply loved. If they made a mistake, would you constantly remind them that they're a failure? Would you tell them they'll never improve? Of course not. You would encourage them, remind them of their strengths, and help them keep moving forward. Yet many people speak to themselves with a level of criticism they would never direct toward another human being. That habit quietly steals confidence. Confidence is not built by waiting until everything goes perfectly. It is built by consistently choosing thoughts that move you forward instead of holding you back. The beautiful thing is that your inner voice is not fixed. It is learned, and what has been learned can also be changed. It begins with awareness. For one day, simply observe your thoughts without judging them. Notice the phrases that appear again and again. Pay attention to the stories you automatically tell yourself. You may discover that you've been carrying beliefs that no longer serve the person you're becoming. Once you recognize them, you gain the power to replace them. Not overnight, not by pretending, but through daily repetition. Every morning gives you a chance to begin the conversation again. Every challenge gives you another opportunity to respond differently. Every setback invites you to decide whether your inner voice will speak fear or faith. Remember, changing your life rarely begins with changing your circumstances. It begins with changing the narrator, because the narrator decides how every chapter is written. If your inner voice constantly reminds you of your limitations, your world begins feeling smaller. If your inner voice reminds you of possibility, resilience, and purpose, your world begins expanding. The outside often follows the inside. So before you spend another day trying to control everything around you, spend a few moments listening to the person you hear the most. Ask yourself one simple question. If someone else spoke to me the way I speak to myself, would I feel inspired or defeated? The answer to that question may reveal the very change you've been searching for. Sometimes the greatest breakthrough doesn't arrive through a new opportunity. Sometimes it arrives through a new conversation with yourself. And that conversation has the power to change everything. The moment you begin changing your inner voice, don't expect every circumstance around you to change overnight. There may still be difficult days. There may still be delays, disappointments, and moments that test your patience. But something remarkable begins to happen. While the outside world may look the same for a while, you are no longer the same person responding to it. You stop allowing temporary problems to become permanent identities. Instead of saying, "This setback proves I'll never succeed," you begin saying, "This is only one chapter, not my entire story." That simple change is far more powerful than it appears. Every great transformation starts with a new story. Think about the people you admire most. Before anyone else believed in them, they had to believe in themselves. Before they achieved success, they learned to reject the voice that constantly whispered, "You're not enough." They replaced fear with purpose and doubt with persistence. You can do the same. Each morning, before the world has a chance to fill your mind with noise, take a few quiet moments to choose your thoughts intentionally. Remind yourself who you are becoming, not who you used to be. Speak words that create strength instead of weakness. Expect progress instead of perfection. There will be moments when the old voice tries to return. It may remind you of past failures or convince you that nothing is changing. Don't fight it with frustration. Simply refuse to agree with it. Every time you choose a better thought, you weaken the old pattern and strengthen a new one. Eventually, your new inner voice becomes natural. Confidence replaces hesitation. Peace replaces anxiety. Hope replaces fear. And once your thoughts begin changing consistently, your actions begin changing as well. You notice opportunities you would have ignored before. You speak with more confidence. You make decisions with greater clarity. People respond differently to the energy you carry because you are no longer introducing yourself to the world through fear. Remember, your future is not created in one dramatic moment. It is created through thousands of small conversations you have with yourself every single day. Every encouraging thought becomes another brick in the foundation of the life you're building. So guard your inner dialogue carefully. Feed your mind with thoughts that inspire courage, patience, gratitude, and possibility. Refuse to let yesterday's mistakes become tomorrow's identity. The words you repeat today are quietly creating the reality you'll experience tomorrow. There comes a point where changing your inner voice is no longer something you remember to do. It becomes who you are. That is the moment your life begins moving in a different direction. Not because the world suddenly became easier, but because you stopped allowing your circumstances to decide your identity. Most people wait for confidence before they act, but confidence rarely arrives first. It grows because of repeated action, repeated belief, and repeated self-respect. Think about learning to walk. No child waits until they are certain they will never fall. They take a step, they stumble, they stand again, and eventually walking becomes natural. Imagine if they had listened to a voice saying, "You fell once, so you were never meant to walk." It would sound ridiculous. Yet adults often speak to themselves that way every day. One mistake becomes proof that they are incapable. One rejection becomes proof that they are unworthy. One delay becomes proof that nothing is working. The problem isn't the event. The problem is the meaning attached to it. Life doesn't ask you to pretend difficulties don't exist. It asks you to choose a meaning that gives you the strength to continue. Instead of saying, "This happened because I'll never succeed," begin saying, "This happened because I'm learning something that will prepare me for what's ahead." That single shift protects your peace. Your inner voice should become a place of wisdom, not a courtroom where you constantly put yourself on trial. Many people spend years searching for the perfect opportunity while ignoring the opportunity they already have to master themselves. Because once you master your thought, your emotions begin changing. When your emotions change, your decisions become clear. When your decisions become clear, your habits improve. And when your habits improve, your future quietly begins changing. This is why transformation is never one giant leap. It is thousands of small choices made consistently. Every morning you choose what story you'll believe. Every conversation is influenced by that story. Every challenge tests that story. Every victory strengthens that story. Ask yourself honestly, what story have you been repeating for years? I never finish what I start. People like me don't become successful. I'm always overlooked. I'm too late. I'm not smart enough. These aren't facts. They are conclusions you've repeated until they felt true. And what has been repeated can be replaced. Imagine waking tomorrow and refusing to repeat the old script. Not because everything is perfect, but because you finally understand that your future deserves better words. Instead of saying, I hope something good happens today, try saying today is another opportunity to grow. Instead of saying nothing ever changes, remind yourself, every day I'm becoming someone stronger. Instead of saying, why is life against me? Ask, what can I learn from this moment? Notice the difference. One voice creates fear, the other creates possibility. One keeps you trapped in yesterday, the other moves you toward tomorrow. Your mind listens to the words you repeat more than the wishes you occasionally make. This is why your daily conversation matters more than your occasional motivation. Motivation comes and goes, discipline stays. Feelings rise and fall, indented remains. Build an identity that supports the future you want to experience. Become someone who expects growth, someone who refuses to surrender because of temporary setbacks, someone who understands that progress isn't measured only by visible results, but also by invisible strength. There will still be mornings when doubt knocks on the door. There will still be evenings when old fears try to return. That doesn't mean you failed, it means you're human. The difference now is that you no longer invite those thoughts to stay. You acknowledge them, you learn from them, then you replace them with something stronger. Over time, your inner voice becomes calmer, kinder, more confident. Not because life became easier, but because you've trained yourself to become stronger than the fears that once controlled you. And one day you'll look back at the person you used to be. You'll remember how often you questioned yourself, how often you waited for permission to believe in your own potential, how often you searched outside yourself for confidence that could only be built within. Then you'll realize something extraordinary. The greatest change was never the promotion, the relationship, the opportunity, or the achievement. The greatest change was becoming someone who finally believed that their thoughts were worth protecting, their words were worth choosing carefully, and their future was worth speaking about with hope instead of fear. Because every remarkable life begins with an ordinary decision. The decision to stop allowing yesterday's voice to write tomorrow's story.